we welcome you today. We welcome you to the College of Life Sciences College Seminar, and a special warm welcome to Dr. Dhurandhar, who's coming to us all the way from Texas through Zoom, and we're really, really grateful to have him. We recognize not only all of you that are participating on the call today, but also our awesome deanery. We know Dean Porter's with us somewhere in all of those pictures, and we appreciate his support of this seminar. We'll go ahead and begin the seminar today with an opening prayer. We've got Gina Dorson that's going to offer that for us. She is a recent graduate of our NPH program. Following Gina's prayer, we'll turn the time over to Dr. Alicia Redolfs, who's assistant professor in the Department of Public Health, and then she's going to introduce Dr. Dhurandhar's presentation. We have reserved some time following his presentation for questioning, and so you can look forward to that. If you'd like to offer those verbally or in the chat, either way will work fine, but we really look forward to your comments, but more importantly to Dr. Dhurandhar's presentation. Again, Dr. Dhurandhar, welcome. We are grateful to have you. And Gina, we'll turn the time over to you for a prayer. Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee so much for this beautiful day that we have the opportunity to gather as current and future public health professionals. We're so grateful for the opportunity to be in this major and to be able to learn skills, to be able to help those in our communities. We're so grateful for the opportunity to hear from Dr. Dhurandhar, and we pray that we'll be able to apply these skills and skill sets and knowledge and tools that he has for us prepared for this seminar and our research and our daily interactions with those we will be working with. We're so grateful for this opportunity to be here at BYU and to receive a wonderful education. We're so grateful for all the leaders who have put this seminar together for us so that we can be prepared and well equipped to be great leaders in the future. We pray that thy spirit may be with Dr. Dhurandhar as he is presenting, and that we may have a great time together. We're so grateful for this opportunity, and we love thee so much, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, so I'm assuming it's me now. Hey, Carol. So without going through and reading Dr. Dhurandhar's pretty extensive and very impressive bio, I'm just going to highlight a few things. So he is currently, Dr. Nikhil Dhurandhar is a full professor. He is the chair of the Department of Nutritional Sciences at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, currently. Previous to Texas Tech, he was with the Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and prior to that at Wayne State University. From 2014 to 2015, he served as the president of the Obesity Society, which is the premier professional organization for obesity practitioners and researchers in the United States and Canada. He is currently the editor-in-chief of the journal Nutrition and Diabetes, and he has also written a book, Dr. Dhurandhar's Fat Loss Diet, which was a #1 bestseller in Amazon, India. So he's very well known in his home country of India for the work that he has done there, as well as here in the US and internationally for many different things. He's had significant numbers of awards from at the state level, national level, and internationally, and has received over $8 million in grants as the primary investigator and an additional $4 million as a co-investigator from the NIH, National Science Foundation, and other sources. He has 47 patents. Some of those we may get to hear just a little bit about today. And his research is focused on molecular biological aspects of obesity and diabetes. Also, obesity due to viruses. He was the first to make that connection. And then the clinical treatment of obesity. So today, as we hear from Dr. Dhurandhar, we're going to get to hear a broader perspective, not dive specifically into specific studies, but he's going to give us a really great overview of obesity and what's going on in this field right now. So I also asked some of his colleagues, because I am also part of the Obesity Society, and my mentor is pretty close friends with Dr. Dhurandhar. So I've reached out through our network, and the words that many of his colleagues use to describe him are remarkable, smart, hardworking, creative, compassionate, driven, and tenacious. So he's also very humble, but is just a fantastic resource. And I am very excited to get to turn the time over to Dr. Nikhil Dhurandhar. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hanson. Thank you, Dr. Alicia Radolf. You called me humble. Now I was going to blow my horn. Now I can't. Anyway, so the title is, and thank you very much for the opportunity. This is really exciting. I won't stop talking till you disconnect me from Zoom. That's how excited I am. And let me just mention that I'm in Lubbock, Texas, and the topic is we need obesity management, not just weight loss. But I also wanted to let you know, this is Texas Tech campus that you're looking at. I took this picture on Monday to let you know how green we are, and today is 72 degrees, in case you all were worried if we had snow or bad weather, so nothing of that sort. Okay. All right. This is some of our members of our lab group, Basic Science. This is our group at what we call Nutrition and Metabolic Health Initiative. That is basically our clinical nutrition arm at our department, where we do clinical trials, clinical treatment of obesity, and student training, etc. This is our group of faculty in our department, Department of Nutritional Sciences. I just wanted to convey to you some idea about what we have here. Now, about obesity, my contact with obesity started with this person, Dr. Vinod Dhurandhar, who is considered father of Indian obesity practice, who started practicing obesity in 1963, practiced obesity for 52 years, and ended up treating 180,000 patients for obesity during that time. He happened to be my father as well. So growing up, dinner table conversations convinced me the sufferings people with obesity undergo. And when I got out of medical school, all I wanted to do was, like him, start obesity practice, which I did. And that was 37 years ago. I've been in this field for 37 years now. This is one of the papers, early papers that I had with him of 10,000 cases of obesity. I ended up treating about 15,000 cases of obesity. And during that time, I learned something that Dr. Stunker, the famous obesity researcher and psychiatrist, had said even before I was born. And I learned it during the practice, what he had written, which is most obese persons will not stay in treatment for obesity. Of those who do stay in treatment, most will not lose weight. And of those do lose weight, most will regain it. It is so true. And I wanted to do something better for people suffering with obesity. So I left my practice, medical practice, and came to United States for graduate studies in nutrition so I can get better training. Eventually landed in Madison, Wisconsin, at University of Wisconsin Medical School as associate director of the clinical nutrition clinic there. My mentor was, on your right side, is Dr. Richard Atkinson. He's not Atkins, Atkinson. And here is what he does nowadays. I think he's enjoying, he's semi-retired and enjoying his life, but he's still connected with obesity, as you can see on his t-shirt. It says 7th International Congress on Obesity. So I think that's his connection with obesity nowadays. So that's my mentor. I learned a lot from him. One of the things I did learn was what obesity is not. And I want to share those thoughts with you. Basically, what I'm planning to do today, as I was asking Alicia if I could do that, is instead of giving you data and papers, which you can read them yourselves, I was going to share with you the thoughts that I have had and perspectives that I have had over the years. Now, that's my perspective, so it can be, of course, can be wrong, and you could challenge it, or you may have different views. That's fine. I thought I'll just share some of the thoughts with you. So what obesity is not, I would say, oh, this is what obesity should not be. Headless figures of people suffering with obesity. There is a human being attached, behind that picture, and we need to, all of us need to do a better job of depicting that and not just show pictures of headless people when we talk about obesity. That's one. Second thing, what obesity is not. Obesity is not a sign of weakness, laziness, lack of self-discipline, or sign of bad behavior. Just think about mental depression. A few years ago, it was thought to be exact this, that depression is weakness, laziness, lack of self-discipline, bad behavior, until we realized that it's a real disease. So same deal with obesity. Now, if you think of even some national agencies, what they consider are causes of obesity. Here is an example of National Health Services, that is UK, United Kingdom. And if you go to their website, you'll see that they say that obesity is generally caused by eating too much and moving too little. And I'm going to refute that, and I'm going to submit to you a different perspective on obesity today. You're going to ask, don't people with obesity eat more? And the answer is possible. There are probably people with obesity eat more compared to thin people, maybe. But what is more important is higher body mass requires greater number of calories just to maintain weight. If somebody is 300 pounds, that person, just to survive, just to maintain daily weight, is going to require more number of calories compared to somebody who is 120 pounds in the first place. But that's just one aspect, and that's me with those many pizzas, wondering whether I should eat all of them or some of them. So obesity is not caused by excessive food, just like swelling is not caused by drinking excessive water. And let's just think about it just for a second here. If you see swelling or edema in somebody, what are you going to conclude? What's your first thought going to be? That this person has been drinking too much, and that's why retaining all that water in the body? Or you're going to be thinking that normally, for a normal person, water in matches exactly water out. That's how our water balance happens in the body. In some individual, that balance goes haywire. There's some issue with kidneys or heart, some functioning has stopped, that water balance is thrown haywire, and now the person is retaining more water in the body. Same deal when it comes to obesity. It's not about excessive weight, and let's just see what it is due to. So what obesity is? Obesity is a chronic and excessive positive energy balance. Each word is important. It's chronic and excessive positive energy balance. That's what obesity is. But you know what? The real question that we should be asking is, what are the upstream contributors to this positive energy balance. It's not enough for us to stop at saying it's positive energy balance. Why some people experience that chronic and excessive positive energy balance? And the answer comes is dysregulation of energy balance. There are many factors, and I don't have time to show all of them, but I will touch upon some of those. There are some factors that dysregulate that energy balance that would have been perfectly working in a person who doesn't have obesity. And if we know that there is dysregulation of energy balance, then the next question is, what are the factors? What dysregulates energy balance in these individuals? I think that is a much useful way of questioning so that we can arrive at effective management of obesity. Doesn't willpower determine food intake? Now, I really wanted to eat all of it that is in front of me, and I didn't. So to some extent, there is willpower, there is executive control in the brain that decides it. But you know what really decides your food intake? There are these hormones that are affecting your hunger and satiety. There is satiety hormones such as glucagon-like peptide, or GLP-1, or peptide YY, PYY. Those are satiety hormones. They are low before you start eating food. And as you start eating food, their levels start rising. And they signal your brain that you are feeling full now, you can stop. And then we may be able to override it if you want to, but at least there is a signal reaching your brain. Similarly, there are hunger hormones such as ghrelin. Ghrelin levels are highest before you eat food. More ghrelin, more hungry you are, you start eating food, ghrelin levels start dropping. And you are able to control eating and stop eating. Now that's the normal mechanism. What happens in some individuals is that onset of that satiety hormone is delayed. So for you to register that your body is full, it takes longer time than somebody else. As a result, you could end up eating more calories, or ghrelin is peaking more often or stronger and making you more hungry. So this is not about willpower. This is about physiology that is controlling your food intake and when you should stop. And why this is important is because our body normally likes to maintain within a range of fat storage. Storage of fat, amount of fat in the body is very important to body. And nature doesn't seem to like getting too much fat or losing too much fat either. It's evident from impaired reproduction. If somebody gains too much fat, the reproduction is impaired. If you lose too much fat, reproduction is impaired. There is anovulatory cycles and conception becomes harder. So bodies seem to like us, not at one point, but within a range of fat for our body. And that seems to be maintained by metabolic rate, how many calories we consume, hunger, and fullness. So those are physiological factors, not willpower. So if too much is fat deposited, metabolic rate increases, hunger decreases, fullness increases. So body is struggling that you gain fat, let's cut it down. Let's increase your metabolic rate. Let's cut down your hunger. And all these that I'm showing you, these are not my opinions. There are papers documenting these statements here, that's what happens. If too much fat is lost, so now body doesn't want you to lose any more fat, then metabolic rate decreases. And that can happen after a weight loss diet. Your metabolic rate decreases, your hunger increases, and your fullness decreases. So body is kind of pushing you to eat more because you lost fat. So both things happen. That tells us how body wants to control that fat in a particular range. Therefore, in people with obesity, this homeostatic system is impaired. I think this is a critical slide. I want you to take a minute just to look at it. Obesity is caused by an inability to maintain body fat within a healthy range. That impairment, that body is unable to control you, keep you within a range, that impairment is what leads to what is called, you could call obesity. And obesity is caused by inability to maintain body fat within a healthy range. Just to illustrate that example, here is an example. Now, if these are two individuals, and if they eat part of this sugar that is shown here, which one of those two, or which one would process its sugar normally and process it abnormally, increasing sugar in the blood? If one of them has diabetes, they won't be able to handle it right. They won't be able to handle that sugar well. So is that sugar causing that rise in blood sugar? Or is it the diabetes that is causing that rise in blood sugar? So diabetes is allowing the expression by increasing blood sugar level. Same deal with obesity. Obesity is caused by inability to maintain body weight within healthy range. Therefore, I would like to submit that obesity comes first. The defect comes first. Fat accumulation is a result of that defect. So, not the cause. I think I can't stress enough about how important I think these concepts are, and especially in guiding our research and thinking in the right direction. I often hear that we can make children prevent their obesity by stopping them from watching TV. I don't think you can prevent their obesity if obesity is that defect in physiology that I'm referring to. You can't prevent that defect. You can prevent perhaps the expression of that disease by controlling their body fat gain or body weight gain. So the difference is that all the efforts that we put in prevention we are not preventing obesity, but we are preventing the expression of that obesity. To prevent obesity, we will have to fix those physiological impairments that physiology led to pathology. So what contributes or causes obesity? And here is an example. Now both photos are of the same person. One on your left side he was 3 years old and about 90 pounds. And the same person when he was 7 years old. And you can see the difference in their degree of fat accumulation, right? This has nothing to do with exercising more or eating less or eating healthy or eating fruits or vegetables. This was because this child was born without a hormone called leptin. Many of you must have heard about it, of course, but just in case you didn't, leptin is something that is made by our fat tissue, and it is a signal between our fat and our brain to tell our brain that I got enough fat. Now let's just do something to control it if it becomes too much. Or I have too little fat, do something and increase it. So that's a chemical talk between our fat tissue and the brain, so to say. I'm just trying to make it as simplified version. This person was born without that leptin, so his brain never understood that he's increasing body fat. And as a result, you can see his weight was 90 pounds when he was 3 years old. The treatment was giving him leptin, and that turned that boy into the picture that you see. So that's just one example. There are not a lot of people with frank leptin deficiency like this, but it illustrates the point I'm trying to make here. Another factor that can contribute to obesity is our intrauterine factors, completely not under your control. When one is in mother's womb, undernutrition experienced by the fetus, or overnutrition, or gestational diabetes. All these conditions of mother have an effect on how that child, baby will turn out to be, and what could be the metabolic fate of that person. Another factor is sleep. There is 50% greater chance of obesity when you have inadequate or poor quality sleep. And there are also studies that show that increasing sleep may decrease BMI in teenagers, as if they need more sleep. So anyway, then environmental food cues, of course, I don't need to say, this probably you're most familiar with, that our environment has an effect on what we could end up eating, not only purchasing, but also end up eating. That absolutely should be acknowledged, that that would have an effect, contribution. Here is something that is close to my heart. We have been researching this topic for a number of times. We coined the term infect obesity, or obesity of infectious origin, to describe this type of obesity. And here is one example of that, an infection from an adenovirus called AD36 or AD36. And this experiment we did was with marmosets, which are small monkeys, non-human primates. And one group was uninfected, that's the blue color. The other group was infected with AD36, that's the red color group. And you can see that the AD36 infected groups over this next 6 months gained 3 times greater body weight in these monkeys. And they had significantly greater body fat as well. So this is just one of the experiments. We and others in many countries now in the world have done experiments or have published about AD36 and its role in obesity. And in humans, we can several meta-analyses have shown that risk of obesity is 2 to 3-fold greater in humans if they are infected naturally with this adenovirus 36. That's just one of the pathogens that causes obesity, but an example of how this is not about willpower. Here is an infographic slide that in one slide captures contributors to energy storage, contributors to obesity. This is a slide when I was TOS president, Obesity Society president. I commissioned a task force and they did a fantastic job of compiling all this information on one slide. This slide is available for free download. You can do it yourself. If you go to Obesity Society website, you can get that. Okay, I want to mention a little bit about treatment of obesity. Now, although I talked about all these different causes of obesity, unfortunately, when it comes to treatment of obesity, we have to come to negative energy balance, which is absolutely the cornerstone of obesity treatment. Just another thought came to my mind I'm going to share with you. It's not on the slide, but when we talk about obesity treatment, and I know I'm rushing ahead of myself here, but I don't want that thought to escape, and I want to share with you all. Many people tell me when I sit in a plane and somebody asks me what I do, and I said I do obesity research, and they say something nasty or bad about obesity or people with obesity, and here we go. I'm arguing with them. So one of the things they say that obesity is all matter of willpower. People themselves are making their weight go up. And they say that they take a fork and put the fork, their hand picks up that food and puts that in their mouth, so they are creating their own obesity. And they can just stop eating or eat less. So my response is, yeah, you're talking about volitional control over eating. And to some extent, I agree that there is some volitional control over what we eat. Question is not whether there is volitional control. And I'll give you an example. If I tell you that medically speaking, you are expected to breathe about 18 times a minute, 18 times or so in a minute. Some volitional control we have over our rate of breathing, right? I can hold my breath, I can release it. So I say that if you are breathing 18 times, start breathing 11 times. 18 times is too much, too fast. Go to 11 times. Can you do that? The answer is yes. You can monitor your rate of breathing so it becomes 11 times a minute. Question is not whether you can do this. Question is how long will that sustain? So eating less, can you do that? Yes. But when you are expected to eat less than what your body, mind, brain, gut, everything is telling you to eat, less than your requirement, how long will that sustain? 1 day, 2 days, 1 week? But if you have to do this month after month, year after year, that's when it becomes difficult. So I just want you to have that empathy. When we talk about treatment of obesity, it is not easy. And coming back to negative energy balance, it has to be substantial negative energy balance, long-term, and cumulative. You can't have 1 day energy balance negative and next 7 days positive and not worry about things. Changing of gears slightly here, and I wanted to introduce another concept called difference between weight loss and fat loss. They are not the same. They may not be the same. It is possible to lose weight by losing just water, body muscle mass, or fat. So in other words, you can get weight loss without fat loss. And in obesity, the issue is not about weight as much as it is about excessive fat, right? So we want to get rid of fat more than getting water or muscle mass. In fact, you don't want to lose muscle and water. But there are many ways that people seem to be misleading others. Now, technically, you see this sentence, laxatives, a way to lose weight for impatient women. Technically, it is correct that if you take laxatives, you will lose weight, but you won't lose fat. But that's sometimes it just slides under someone's radar and they start following those ads. Here it says, how to lose water weight. Now, why do you want to lose water weight? And what does that have to do with fat, body fat that is excessive? Nothing. So, but then people practice that at times. Therefore, that was sort of genesis for my writing a title of this book, which is Fat Loss Diet. I want people to focus on fat loss and not weight loss. Of course, we use the word weight loss conventionally, but what I really want to draw your attention is it should be fat loss. And therefore, when I'm treating patients, I recommend and suggest strongly that they use this scale that you see, BIA, body impedance analyzer. There are many models, many companies. This is just one photo here. And it is good to have it in their at their home, like a version that costs something around $40. Then the one that we use in our clinic here at our NMHI is we use DEXA, which is $80,000, or we use other BOD pod, which is about $35,000. But that's for research. For home use, instead of using a body weight scale, I recommend, if they can afford and they can use, it would be a BIA scale, because then that can keep track of fat percent loss instead of weight loss. And then can also monitor the muscle mass. Other ways to monitor fat loss is measure waist and hips. Just take yourself, do it yourself, because if somebody else does it, it can change measurements. And take a measurement of your waistline at the level of umbilicus and hips at the level of maximum circumference and keep monitoring that. That's the easiest way if you don't want to buy the weighing scale, BIA scale, to monitor your body fat loss. And the last one of the other things that I mentioned is a step ladder weight loss. Now, this is a critical concept, clinically speaking. So when we lose weight, if you look at my finger here, body weight does not come down in a straight line like this. Does not. When you're losing weight, you lose some weight, and then there is a plateau. And that can last for 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, and then you drop again suddenly. And then you're again at that plateau for a day, 2, 3, and then you lose. So this is a step ladder fashion weight loss that happens in most of us. Why this is important to know is because when you're not losing weight, that is the most dangerous or most critical period that people tend to feel disappointed. That I've been losing weight, I lost my weight on Monday, I lost 3 pounds, but it's been Friday and I'm still stuck there. So forget all this. Now it's going to be weekend and I'm going to throw this diet out of the window and start enjoying, something like that. So that disappointment can be avoided if patients know already how this happens. Why it happens? It happens mainly because body retains water even if it is losing fat. And then it gets rid of that water suddenly. That's when you see that drop. And then again, you go on for some time and so on. So disappointment can also be avoided if you are measuring body fat, not just body weight. Okay, diet, of course, is a basis for all treatment modalities, which is part of lifestyle modification. One could have just that lifestyle modification or lifestyle modification plus drugs, or for weight loss or for obesity, or lifestyle modification for surgery. So you see how much of a cornerstone it is to have all of that. But that diet or lifestyle modification, in my opinion, needs to be purposeful and planned obesity treatment. Another important point I just want to underscore here, that instructions like just eat less, or eat more fruits and vegetables, or just avoid fried foods, move more. Such general pointers, they are well-intentioned and they may make you live a healthier life, but they are ineffective for treating obesity, which is a serious and complex disease. And here is an example of that. These are studies from New England Journal where they give general advice like this to eat less and move more. And those, you can look those studies up. They're only 2.6% weight loss after 1 year, which is, I don't know if it is any clinically meaningful. It's better than 0 or better than gaining weight, of course. But that's what we end up if we have a generalized, just eat less, push yourself away from the table type of advice. The obesity is a serious disease. It needs a serious dietary prescription. Another item is focusing on a single item. Like some people latch onto a particular food as in their minds as culprit for obesity. For example, sugar-sweetened beverages. And now imagine that's your thing, that sugar-sweetened beverages is what is causing obesity, so you should avoid sugar-sweetened beverages. And if I'm seeing a patient like this is the tray that you're looking at, and if I see this tray and tell the patient, just avoid those sugar-sweetened beverages, everything else is okay. Do you really think that? Do you really think those fries or that milkshake or whatever is there, or those burgers are not going to give any calories as long as you avoid the sugar-sweetened beverage? So focusing on a single item is not bad, but it's not helpful. It is equivalent to focusing on a single item in this buffet. Would it matter if one of the dishes was removed from this buffet? Will a person eat less because you removed one of the dishes? So I feel it is somewhat, one needs to think it through before before you give such advice that eat less of one particular food. I feel this is like digging a hole in water. You can't dig a hole in water because other water is going to fill it up. Same way, if you tell somebody to just eat one dish less from this, what you're looking at, they will get calories from other sources. It just lasts just few slides here. And this is about which diet is a good diet, right? Weight loss. What is the best macronutrient composition for weight loss? Is it low carb, low fat, high protein? Which one of those? So Dr. Tom Wadden and colleagues did this, published this paper about comprehensive review, highlighting the randomized controlled trials, and they compared various macronutrient compositions. And they concluded that not one single diet emerged as a clear winner, despite they having studied lots of such studies. Here is one example. This is a study, many people from Pennington were involved in that, and others, of course. This is a study of different compositions done head-to-head comparisons. You see that 65, 15, 20, that is a proportion of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. 65% carb, 15% protein, 20% fat. And then they had these different combinations of diets that they tried in people for 2 years, and you see what you get. Almost identical after 2 years. Didn't matter what kind of macronutrient composition of the diet was. There was weight loss, but between diets, comparisons didn't yield much. Here is even a better analysis. Now, one on the left side, that graph shows the comparison of 4 diets: Atkins diet, Zone, Weight Watchers, and Dean Ornish diet. And you can see that all those diets had some weight loss, but that line, the horizontal line, shows that there was not much difference in weight loss produced by different diets. Of course, there is a range. Within each diet, there were people who lost a lot of weight or gained some weight, but even that pattern seems to be similar. Now, so it seems that it didn't matter which diet it was, there was weight loss, but not that one diet was better than the other. Now look at the figure on your right side. That analysis is done by dietary adherence, as reported by patients. They themselves reported how good or bad they are in adhering to diet. And look at the weight loss. Amount of weight lost on those same diets, same study, same diets, is way more when you are sticking to that diet. So it is going up to, as you can see, the line bending down, showing more weight loss if you are adhering more. So the sort of takeaways from Warren study were: compliance is the biggest predictor of success on a diet. It's the compliance, it's not as much the diet. Impact of calorie restriction that a diet produces outweighs the effect of macronutrient composition. And thus, pay attention to patients' innate preferences when recommending a diet. And that is exactly what we have been doing for years in terms of improving dietary adherence. I really like to say, I say this over and over again, I don't like to put a square peg in a round hole. I have to, instead of telling patients that this is your diet, I go to patients and ask them, what is it that you need? And then we prepare a diet that will match that patient. So I start with cause-specific treatments as appropriate. If you have a patient who has inadequate sleep that is contributing to that person's weight, unless you fix that, it's going to be hard by fixing weight loss or obesity just by adjusting diet if the maintaining cause is not treated. So cause-specific treatment as appropriate is one. And then in terms of for long-term adherence, I would make it individualized treatment, medications for weight loss if needed, because they empower person to adhere to a diet by making them feel full. Diet that suits personal preferences. If you ask me to do a Atkins diet, I will do it for 3 days because I won't be able to stick to that type of diet for a long time. Dietary regimen that suits personal lifestyle. Now, some people eat breakfast and dinner, don't eat lunch. Some people don't eat breakfast, eat lunch and dinner. Some people take their lunch to work. Some people eat at workplace. Some people are hungry in the afternoon. All those things need to be put in that diet if you're going to get compliance out of those people. At the same time, diet should not be too restrictive, but at the same time, it is prescriptive and specific. And by prescriptive, I mean obesity is a disease. It's a complex disease that requires appropriate treatment. It is not a general health advice from your neighbor. It's a specific diet planned out to address your disease. Just like if there is renal disease and a diet for renal disease is given, there is diet for obesity is to be given. Okay, last concept here is obesity management, which is different than just fat loss or weight loss. If you look at these points here, there is that fat loss I have circled. Fat loss is only one of the many things that one needs to do for obesity management. Just like for diabetes, goal of diabetes is not only to reduce your blood sugar, but goal of diabetes treatment is also diabetes management, which is care of your skin, care of kidneys, care of eyes, making sure that retina is good. So it's comprehensive management of diabetes that includes reduction of blood sugar level. Same way, obesity management is comprehensive, should include all these, include identify causes and contributors of obesity, and then address some of those that are modifiable. Not all of them are modifiable. Then management of obesity should also include prevention of further fat gain or further weight gain, fat loss, and maintenance once you lose that fat or lose that weight. And then management of associated comorbidities. Obesity comes in a package with hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol levels, or cardiovascular diseases, or what have you. We cannot ignore those. So that all together becomes obesity management, not just a narrow focus on losing weight. And this is by Mike Jensen and colleagues, a paper that shows very similar to what I just said. You reduce 5 to 10% of weight loss, which will improve complications that are associated with obesity, and then improve health, well-being, and that will reduce other comorbidities or associated conditions. And that would be overall obesity management. So in summary, here is what is near to me in terms of messages. First of all, you don't choose obesity. Obesity chooses you. Obesity is not a choice. Obesity chooses you, just like you don't choose COVID. COVID chooses you. Diabetes is not cured because you decide to do so. Same deal with obesity. Just because you told someone that, hey, you have obesity, why don't you lose weight? And then that person decides to lose weight. Doesn't mean they succeed. But certainly just because you pointed it out doesn't mean that it's all done. Now they are going to be obesity free. And finally, addressing obesity includes weight loss and comprehensive management of the disease, not just only focus on weight loss. With that, thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate the opportunity. And of course, if you have some points to discuss, I'm here. Alicia, I think you're muted.
Dr. Dhurandhar, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
An interesting paper from Pennington just 2 years ago looked at time-restricted feeding, in which they noted what everybody notes that does time-restricted feeding, that is a weight loss. But what was interesting about that study is that to determine if it was something to do with the time or if it was just the weight loss, they actually fed the subjects more than they would have eaten otherwise, so that they did not lose weight, but still consume their meals only within that restricted time limit, and showed the same beneficial effects with insulin, beta cell function, and all those sorts of things. There are diurnal variations in all of these hormones that you refer to. I'm wondering if anybody has looked at that crosstalk, perhaps, between the time that people eat things, which has been shown to very definitely affect these biochemical parameters, and in many people lose weight, and the traditional approaches that you've so eloquently outlined here for hormonal treatment or looking at the root cause.
Yeah, this is a sort of relatively new and growing field or focus in time-restricted feeding. I think we need much more information, more studies. One of the issues is it is harder to compare study from other study because of the concept of time restricting. It's not everybody is doing similar restriction. Some people are counting time from 12 midnight. Some people are counting time from, and the hours, how many hours, and at what point that was restricted. So I think we need a little bit more information about, so to be able to make meaningful conclusions about that. This field will sort itself out, but I don't think I can say that we know for sure exactly how things are working. It does seem to have an effect. Time restricted feeding does seem to have effect in the control groups that they have used in respective studies also. But what I come back to is that what is clinically possible and what people can clinically do is really what is going to matter. And I want to, in order to respond to that, I want to go back to that study that I showed about Pennington, that there are four groups compared, different carbohydrate, fat, protein percent. If you look at that study, I think it's figure 4D or something, that although these people, 4 groups started with 4 different types of diet, like one with high carb, one with high fat, one with high protein, 4 different types of diets, within 6 months, all those groups had come to one type of diet. So they started with different types of diets, but in 6 months, they had lost significance between macronutrient composition between diet. What that tells us is that people are unable to stick to something that they are not used to eating for a long time. So it's the feasibility starts mattering. So even in time restricted studies, how much, even if a particular pattern is good, now I hear that 16-hour fasting works very well with two feeds within 8 hours. If somebody can do that, that's great, and that will decide applicability of that person on a wider applicability, I feel.
We do have another question that was posted to the chat a little earlier. So the question was, it was when you were first talking about the various biological components that can lead to obesity and these defects. So the question is, does this mean that there could be different defects on people who are all suffering with obesity? And how does that relate to the way that we specialize treatment for that individual?
Yeah, okay. So yes, it is possible. I like to use the term obesities just to describe that obesity may not be just one disease. It may be a conglomerate of diseases, just like cancer, for example. Cancer is not one disease, right? If I ask what are the causes of cancer, you can't answer that unless you ask me which cancer. If it is lung cancer, maybe smoking. If it is skin cancer, maybe UV exposure. If it's uterine cancer, maybe it's a virus, and so on and so forth. So cancer is not one disease. Same way, I don't think obesity is one disease. Obesity is obesities, depending on what is contributing to that derangement in energy metabolism. And in one person, there can be multiple things. It doesn't have to be that one person has only leptin deficiency and that's it. But that person can have leptin deficiency and adenovirus 36 and inadequate sleep, and who knows how many combinations. So we currently use blanket treatment regardless of the cause. Whoever has obesity, we treat them with eat less, move more, kind of negative energy balance, maybe drugs, in rare cases, surgery. We don't consider those causes because we are not looked at them, and we are unable to modify many of them right now. But there are some modifiable factors, as I was saying, such as sleep. If sleep or inadequate sleep is influencing someone's body weight, that could be modified, that should be addressed. And we are clearly not there to have specific treatment for each contribution, each disease. But unless we set out to study, unless we go in that direction that we need more cause-specific treatments, we won't look for those causes. And if you don't look, we'll never find them.
We have a couple more comments that have come in as well in the chat. Judy Harris mentioned, I agree we need to be empathetic to this obesity epidemic. I think I boil it down to lifestyles, as this seems to be the largest factor. There are really many facets to this. I prefer to work with the early end of the age spectrum so obesity doesn't choose you. And then says, thanks for your presentation. Would you have anything to say in response to that comment?
Yeah, as I think I spent a lot of slides explaining that lifestyle is a method of treatment. That is what go-to place for treatment. And the lifestyle that is probably implied in this comment is there are people who eat XYZ and whatever that is. People eat at McDonald's, or people eat, ice cream or what have you, fast food. But there are lots of other people who eat the same thing. But their metabolic, they have their regulation that I was talking about, that energy metabolism is intact, that saves them from gaining abnormal amount of body fat. So it's not that there are people who have obesity are the ones who are eating sugar, sweetened beverages, and others are drinking water. That's not the case. So focusing on that defect and addressing that defect in physiology is more important as a researcher. We have spent maybe 60 years understanding that there is, that lifestyle may be an issue, and we have made zero progress. We are where we were 60 years ago. If it is that simple, that just eat less, just change your lifestyle, and then you'll be okay, we won't be talking about it today. It is very difficult. And that's the example I was giving about controlling breathing, that it is very difficult to expect out of someone to be eating very little amount and not be distracted and be eating very simple food and so on and so forth, year after year. That is unfair. When we know that there is a problem in metabolism, in regulating that fat store in the first place.
So I have a follow-up question on that, because as a Department of Public Health, we're the ones who invited you to come and speak in this seminar today. Sometimes, oftentimes in public health, we're trying to come up with simple messages that are easily communicated to promote health, to educate. Do you have any advice for us in communicating more accurately about obesity and about things that we can suggest in the programs that our students work in, or the places that they go as they move into employment after graduation?
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that point up. None of what I said was meant to say that this is what exclusively should be done. There are lots of things that can be and should be done in society, and they are not exclusive of, they are not mutually exclusive. So that's why I showed that slide about environment, where we have the supermarket with a lot of food stores and attractive food and so on. So if there is something that can be done to address that, if you want to minimize those effects, that's a good thing. It's not that you should focus only on genes for obesity. That's not what we're talking about. There are all these partnerships that can happen, should happen in public health, but at the same time, we need to recognize that one of the goals is to getting to the root, to that root cause. Now, an example from cancer area would be, we have treatments for cancer today, but we know that those are not the best treatments available. I mean, there can be better treatment. That doesn't mean we stop offering treatment. We give to people what we have today. We turn back, go to the lab, come up with better drugs, better approaches, and offer those. So today, we don't have those better drugs. So it doesn't mean that we send people away, right? We don't tell people that, okay, I don't have a drug for your cancer, come back after 15 years when I have a better one. We still advocate for using, for example, skin cancer would be for preventing sunburn or UV light. All those things, all steps we take, but we don't stop at that. We say, I still want to create a drug for skin cancer. So those are not mutually exclusive efforts. I think it's the same thing with obesity when it comes to, it's a partnership between various, it's community partnership, public health partnership, basic scientists, clinicians, all need to be working together to find a solution for obesity. And this is not at all meant to be, this is a mutually exclusive thing. You should just focus on one of the aspects at all.
Thank you for touching on that. We have a question from Jacob. Are the mechanisms of how AD36 causes obesity understood?
To a large extent, yes. We know that adenovirus 36, for some weird reason, it has affinity for fat tissue. Not too many viruses go to fat tissue. They go to lungs, etc. This virus goes to fat tissue. It infects stem cells that reside in fat tissue. And it turns those stem cells into fat cells. So it increases the number of fat cells by converting stem cells into fat cells, and increases differentiation and fat deposition in those fat cells. That's how we understand that AD36 works. And we have done many experiments to make sure that that's what it is.
Thank you. So we have one more question so far. If anyone else has any other questions, you can type those into the chat box, and we'll finish up here in just a moment. I think we've got Dr. Dhurandhar talking and talking, as he said he would do, until we shut off the video. Also, so everyone knows, I have been going through and putting a few resources, different links in the chat box that you can take a look at. And a few of the things that Dr. Dhurandhar mentioned in his presentation today you'll have a few links there that you can also access. So this last question is from Greg. Can those different individual factors that lead to obesity predict the length of the plateaus in the step-ladder weight loss you described? Or is the duration of that plateau dependent on other factors?
Excellent question. No, we don't know. But what I'm referring to plateau is just a few days. There is a different plateau that people lose weight after 6 months, and then they won't lose any further. That is an example, 6 months, I said, but it could be 8 months, 1 year. But that's a different plateau. But I'm referring to even day to day, you may not see weight loss every day. You may see it in a day, 2 days, 3 days, sometimes 4 days. That is what I was referring to as a step ladder plateau. I don't know what are the factors that would influence that. That would be good to know. One thing that I do know is people with adenovirus 36 infection, children, actually, we have a study with children, they seem to lose weight slower. But that's the only one, I mean, in terms of cause and effect thing I can think of that has been attributed, that in terms of plateau.
And I think I've had students ask about the idea of the body weight set point and how that might relate to plateaus or not. Yeah, you somewhat address that without using that terminology. What are your thoughts about the idea of the body weight set point?
So there is a lot of debate about the word set point being 1 point, 1 weight, one number. And people who know more about this than I do tend to argue that it's not a set point, but it's settling point because it keeps changing in a way, and it may be a range. But there are a lot of studies, and I couldn't show all of them, but there is a study by Rudy Leibel, for example. It was published in New England Journal in '94. In which what they did was they increased body weight of people by force feeding them. So people were at this level, their weight went up here. And then they made them eat less and lose weight. So then they came back to normal and went down further. And during this experiment, what they found was when they start gaining weight because they are being force fed, they start increasing their metabolic rate. So what body is trying to do is don't go up that fast, come back. I'm going to increase your metabolic rate so that you won't gain weight that much. That's what body is doing when they're gaining weight. When they start losing weight, body starts reducing metabolic rate. So now its metabolism is becoming slower and slower as you're dropping because body doesn't like that you're losing weight, and it wants to slow down that your progress going down. So there are all these experiments that have been done that show that body tries to resist that change from whatever equilibrium it was sensing. And so that is clear. That has been shown many times. Whether it is a set point, 1 point, whether it is settling point, those are debates, and I don't know if that's subtle.
We just had one more question come in about leptin, specifically about how that's treated, or is that food, supplements, medication?
So leptin deficiency, meaning complete absence of leptin. If you have complete absence of leptin, it is easier to treat that because there is no leptin, so you give leptin injections. And that's the cleanest way, very dramatic results like the one that I showed. But there are very few people in the world, as we know right now, that have that leptin deficiency, complete absence of leptin. Most others, we have actually leptin resistance, meaning we have more leptin just like insulin resistance. We have more insulin, but if people who have diabetes have insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, because there's more insulin, but it's not effective, so body is making more and more insulin. So more leptin, easy to treat when complete absence. When there is leptin resistance, you can still give some more leptin, and it can show a little bit of effect, not as much effect, in the hope that you have leptin, but give more leptin, and maybe it will work something. But that has been shown to be little. But these are injections.
All right, so I'm looking through the chat box. I think we got everyone's questions. If anyone has any final comments, go ahead and write that into the chat box. One other thing for everyone to know, we will be, as a department, the Department of Public Health will be making this recording available. So once the meeting finishes and Zoom has finished processing everything, we'll put it into our department announcements, and we can send it out via the college email as well. So this will be available to you. We would suggest that if you know anyone else who wasn't able to join with us today, that you consider sharing the recording with them. I know there were quite a few faculty who really wanted to be able to listen to the presentation, who might have had other things going on at this time block. So we haven't had any other questions come in. Do you have any last second words for us before we let you go?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, for the invite. I appreciated the questions as well. I really hope that we have partnership in various ways, that there are people from different areas. Don't see obesity as that very quickly. That have you, Alicia? Do you know that poem about blind men and the elephant? And there's a poem, British poem of 17th century, that four blind people went to see an elephant, and then they felt the elephant, and they were coming home. And as the poem says, that now one person says, "Oh, now I know that elephant is like a pole," and the other person says, "What are you talking about? Elephant is like a wall." And the third person says, No, I felt the elephant is like a rope." And so what they were describing is the part of the elephant that they felt. And the poem says that elephant is all that and more. Same way is obesity. If I'm not, but if I'm a molecular in genetics, I will have a tendency to say obesity is all due to genetics. And if I were in clinic, and I'll say, oh, obesity all due to what I see is in the clinic. And then different fields will say differently. But I think obesity is all that and more, and therefore is going to require art and contribution from all these fields to get it under control.
All right, well, thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to present this, preparing the presentation for us, and for sharing your thoughts and your wealth of knowledge that you have accumulated over many years in working in this field. For those who are still on or who are watching this video later, again, go ahead and take a look at some of the links that have been provided here. As students, the website obesity.org is the website for the Obesity Society that Dr. Dhurandhar has mentioned several times in his presentation. He is a past president of the Obesity Society, and students get great rates to go and participate in Obesity Society events. So if any of you are interested in that, I know there are faculty in several of the departments those of us who are members of the Obesity Society, and we can help you walk through that process if you're interested in getting involved and learning more. I also put on a link for the Obesity Action Coalition, which is very advocacy oriented. for those who might be interested in that side of obesity and reducing stigma, changing policy, those kinds of pieces. So with that, again, thank you very much, Dr. Dhurandhar. And it's been a pleasure for us to have you join us today.
Thank you.